do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time.
You don't agree with that?
Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud about our history there.
Keir Starmer just walked into a verbal wood chipper, and guess who's revving the engine? Joe Rogan and VANCE tag team this political snooze fest with the precision of a podcast hit squad. If you thought Starmer's personality was missing, wait till they break down his policies. Spoiler alert, they were never found. Get ready for brutal truth bombs, awkward chuckles, and the kind of roasting that makes marshmallows nervous. Stay tuned. Starmer's career might need a witness protection program after this.
I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over. But
Keir Starmer, Britain's most human-shaped fog machine, just got verbally obliterated, dissected and gift-wrapped in political irrelevance by two men who couldn't be more different yet equally allergic to waffle, Joe Rogan and VANCE. And you know it's bad when VANCE, a man who sounds like he was built in a Midwest garage using spare parts from a libertarian podcast, actually makes more sense on British politics than the guy running for Prime Minister.
Seeing it now in England where people are getting arrested for tweets. Yeah. There's something like 4,000 people have been arrested in England where they've said things online that people find to be a hateful thing or a problematic.
That's what's happening in England right now, isn't it?
They arrested thousands of people for social media posts.
That's crazy. Were they threatening people?
They don't have to be. They don't have to be threatening.
We also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up.
Let's start with Starmer's greatest achievement, weaponizing boredom. This man talks like a malfunctioning AI trained exclusively on insurance documents. His speeches are the auditory equivalent of a beige wallpaper slowly peeling itself out of sheer embarrassment. He has somehow managed to run a political campaign entirely on vibes, specifically the vibe of a soggy rice cake left out in the rain.
Stage, says Starmer. That's what he said. And again, it comes back to this idea, no, Keir Starmer. It put you on the world stage. And that's what you love. You love glad-handing with your globalist mates, kissing up to all the massive transnational corporations which are crushing small businesses in this country. This is not about this country. This is putting us, again, giving, and we're getting, it seems, nothing.
Second question, and this is a criticism that's been levelled at you from voters but also members of your shadow cabinet. Are you too boring to be the next Prime Minister?
Well, let me take that one. The only thing that's boring is opposition. That's what's boring.
And then comes Rogan, with all the subtlety of a bear wearing sunglasses indoors. Rogan doesn't need to understand UK politics to spot nonsense when it's breathing heavily through a poorly rehearsed soundbite. Within minutes, he's asking the real questions. How is this man both spineless and rigid at the same time? How can one person embody both indecisiveness and smug certainty with every sentence? Starmer looks like he's about to lead a revolution, but only if it's approved by committee, written in triplicate, and doesn't scare the Liberal Democrats.
This dude in England, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, is literally ruining the country. And the people seem to hate him as well. It's sad because the country used to be great. Such a shame.
VANCE, meanwhile, comes in swinging like a guy who just discovered British politics on a dare. And yet somehow his outsider perspective ends up making more sense than anything that's come out of Starmer's mouth since he took the leadership crown from Jeremy Corbyn, like a reluctant substitute teacher inheriting a classroom on fire. Vance calls it out for what it is. Starmer's big plan is to do everything the Tories did, but with more apologies and fewer facial expressions. And speaking of expressions, Starmer's face is like a screensaver for disinterest. If you fed his entire campaign into an emotion detector, it would return a reading of meh in Comic Sans. Rogan practically burst a blood vessel trying to understand how someone can lead a major party and still sound like they're explaining return policies at a hardware store. He's not leading a political movement, he's managing a mid-level HR department in a collapsing office tower.
London doesn't feel fully English to me anymore. UK leaders should look out for citizens of the UK or subjects or whatever you guys call yourselves. If immigration, non-stop immigration, was the way to create wealth and prosperity and lower home prices, then London would be doing great. And I gotta tell you, I was in London last year and it's not doing so good.
Starmer's idea of bold reform is saying let's do better, but with less enthusiasm than someone ordering decaf at 3 a.m. The man has built an entire political identity out of not offending anyone, which is, ironically, the only offensive thing about him. He could walk into a room full of toddlers and somehow come out polling lower than a fire alarm. Every time he speaks, you can feel Britain collectively asking, is this really the guy? Rogan didn't need footnotes, he just laid it bare. VANCE couldn't believe it either. Imagine building your entire career on telling it like it is, raw, straight up, no filter, and then stumbling upon Keir Starmer, who treats conviction like it's gluten, and he's severely intolerant. Watching Starmer campaign is like watching someone try to herd fog. He keeps gesturing vaguely, hoping the weather will eventually organise itself into a coherent manifesto. It's not that he lacks principles, it's that he seems to have downloaded every possible one like a confused robot buffering between ideologies. Starmer doesn't stand for something, he hovers gently near everything like a confused hummingbird at a buffet of political nectar. One minute he's waving a progressive flag and the next he's trying to outsmile investment bankers like he's applying for the position of most lovable technocrat 2025. If leadership had a Tinder profile, Starmer would swipe right on everyone, ghost half, and then launch a speech about shared values while updating his policy document mid-sentence.
Is freedom of speech dead in this country?
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizen suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
And flip-flopping? Oh, sweet democracy, flip-flopping. Keir Starmer changes direction more often than a Roomba trapped in a circular room. If he had a spirit animal, it would be a weather vane having a midlife crisis during a Category 5 hurricane. He's like a political shapeshifter, except all the shapes are made of lukewarm jelly. One day he's waving to striking workers like he just remembered what unions are, and the next he's writing LinkedIn posts about fiscal responsibility, like he's pitching a TED talk called How to Kill Momentum with Spreadsheets. He makes promises the way toddlers make art, enthusiastically, without context, and it all ends up in the recycling bin anyway. His idea of vision is photocopying conservative policy documents, doodling a little red heart in the corner and calling it bold change. Even VANCE, a guy who could spot a political cop-out from across the Atlantic, just stared in slack-jawed amazement as Starmer moonwalked his way out of yet another position he claimed to hold 5 minutes ago. Rogan couldn't handle it. The man sat there blinking like someone just described a diet made entirely of melted crayons. How is this guy not dizzy from all the U-turns was written all over his face. Starmer's strategy is less leadership and more improv theatre, but make it legislative. Every move is reactive. Every sentence is so layered with disclaimers, you need a lawyer just to figure out if he meant anything at all. Watching Starmer try to articulate a clear position is like watching someone play political twister with a blindfold, 3 left feet, and a crippling fear of touching anything red. He shouts consensus every time he loses balance, which is often. He's not leading the Labour Party, he's dragging it behind him like a broken shopping trolley filled with unread focus group results and abandoned pledges. JD Vance pointed it out perfectly. Starmer's not offering solutions, he's offering software updates for Britain's operating system, slightly newer, just as buggy, and still crashing under pressure. His leadership pitch is basically, don't worry, I won't do anything weird or noticeable. That's not governance. That's beige wallpaper trying to run for office. He wants to turn Britain into a moderately successful tech startup powered by compromise and tepid coffee. And when the country is spiralling through crises like inflation, an NHS on life support, and a housing market that looks like a bad prank, what does Starmer bring to the table? The emotional intensity of a damp sock left behind in a travel lodge. His response to every major issue is so sterile it could be used to disinfect surgical tools. While Rome burns, Starmer offers to host a constructive dialogue on fire safety next quarter after consulting stakeholders. He doesn't confront problems, he schedules them. Britain is begging for urgency, and he's sending calendar invites titled Strategic Brainstorm, Tentative. While people are screaming for answers, Starmer sends bullet points. He doesn't challenge the establishment. He writes it a polite memo, CCs the press office, and hides behind a curtain made of conditional statements.
JD Vance is putting the pressure on Keir Starmer again. Thank God for JD Vance. He says that Keir Starmer must repeal hate speech laws in order to get a trade deal. He says there's a good chance of an agreement, but sources say his concerns over Starmer's attack on free speech is still a red line. I hope that red line stays there firmly.
This isn't leadership, this is a crisis helpline manned by someone who answers every call with, tricky, let's revisit that next fiscal year. JD Vance nailed it. Starmer's entire existence is a masterclass in political evasion. He's the kind of guy who could get lost in a straight hallway, a man who thinks strong leadership is just whispering unity into a microphone while everyone around him screams for clarity. Starmer's idea of bold action is suggesting we might need a new task force. He talks about reform the way people talk about assembling IKEA furniture. Hesitantly, fearfully, and always with an eye on the exit. And yet somehow he's framed as the safe choice. Safe, the man's so risk-averse he probably checks both sides of a revolving door before stepping in. If Britain wants a vision, Starmer's offering a slightly smudged blueprint with a sticky note that says TBD, and when JD Vance, a man built like a bar brawl in a book club, looks at you and says, even I don't understand what this guy stands for, it's not just bad, it's catastrophic. Because if clarity were currency, Starmer would be flat broke and borrowing talking points from expired think tanks. This is what happens when you build a political persona out of press releases, apologies, and fear of commitment. The man isn't leading a party, he's managing public confusion. And the only consistent thing about Keir Starmer is his refusal to be consistent about anything at all.
The Trump administration is troubled by reports that some foreign governments are considering tightening the screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Now, America cannot and will not accept that, and we think it's a terrible mistake, not just for the United States of America, but for your own country.
Joe Rogan didn't even have to reach for the punches. It was like roasting a paper bag with googly eyes. He pointed out that Starmer's leadership style makes paint drying look like a rave. This is the guy who claims he's ready to lead Britain into the future, but only after conducting 3 focus groups, consulting his inner circle, and double-checking the vibes on LinkedIn. JD Vance added a cherry on top by pointing out that Starmer has no actual base, just a scattered collection of people who dislike the Conservatives slightly more than they distrust him. His supporters don't cheer, They sigh politely. If enthusiasm were fuel, Starmer's campaign bus would have broken down in a Waitrose parking lot months ago. You know your political brand is in trouble when JD Vance, a man whose political career is built on dunking on elites, looks at your carefully curated nothingness and says, "Wow, even I wouldn't try that." Starmer isn't even offending anyone. He's just leaving everyone baffled. It's like trying to rally behind a screensaver. You stare long enough and start questioning your life choices. And the promises? Oh, the promises. Starmer makes them like a magician pulling rabbits out of a hat. But they're always invisible rabbits, and the hat is full of shredded manifestos from 2 weeks ago. He promises bold change, but only in PowerPoint slides. He vows to challenge the status quo, but only if the status quo says it's okay. If he were any more cautious, he'd wear a helmet to bed.
You know what he's got, Andrew? He's got non-player character energy. Do you know what that means?
No.
NPC. Unfortunately, it's NPC is non-player character. Main player character is your charismatic leader with loads of riz. He's not got that.
He's a charisma bypass.
Rogan and Vance were unified on one thing. If this is what Britain's calling leadership, then it's time to start checking for carbon monoxide leaks. Starmer isn't a threat to the establishment. He is the establishment, just in a slightly more socially anxious form. He's not here to shake things up, he's here to dust the shelves and rearrange the books in alphabetical order. By the end of the roast, Keir Starmer was less of a man and more of a cautionary tale, a reminder that charisma cannot be downloaded, conviction can't be faked forever, and you can't lead a country by trying to be everyone's least offensive option. Joe Rogan called him out like a confused gym trainer watching someone bench press bubble wrap. And JD Vance delivered the final blow like a southern lawyer dismissing a weak case with a smirk and a biscuit. Keir Starmer wanted to be a unifier. What he became was a human screensaver, drifting between press conferences and policy reversals like a ghost looking for a backbone. And if Rogan and Vance had anything to say about it, and oh, they did, it's that Britain deserves more than a personality vacuum in a suit pretending to steer a ship while quietly Googling how to look decisive without making anyone upset. Starmer walked into the political coliseum armed with nothing but a checklist and a vague sense of moderation, and got verbally mauled by a podcaster and a senator who weren't even trying that hard. And honestly, that's the most Keir Starmer thing that could have possibly happened.